My girlfriend brushed me off with, "It's just work, don't be jealous," when I asked about the nonstop texts with her ex. Then I caught a lock screen preview. Does he suspect anything yet? That's when I realized they had a plan. Now, so do I. The air in our apartment, usually thick with the comfortable silence of shared evenings, suddenly crackled with unspoken tension. Sarah's words hung there, a flimsy shield against the hurricane brewing inside me. It's just work. Just work? Was that supposed to soothe me? To erase the nagging unease that had been festering for weeks? I'd noticed the shift, the subtle changes in her behavior. The way she'd flinch when I touched her, the way her eyes darted away from mine, the constant tapping on her phone, always angled away from my view. And then there were the names. Familiar names from her past, names I hadn't heard in the 2 years we'd been together, suddenly popping up in conversation. Oh, I ran into Mark at the grocery store. Just helping David with a work thing. Mark. David. Her exes. I tried to be reasonable, to trust her. Jealousy, I knew, was a corrosive emotion, capable of poisoning even the strongest relationships. But the knot in my stomach tightened with each passing day. That night, the phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Each notification a tiny, insidious jab at my peace of mind. Finally, I'd asked. Carelessly, I hoped, trying to mask the insecurity clawing at my throat. "Who are you texting so much?" "It's just work," she'd repeated, her voice a little too quick, a little too practiced. "David needs some help with a project." David. Again. And then, the moment that shattered everything. She'd left her phone on the coffee table, screen down. A notification popped up, illuminating the glass with a brief, tantalizing glow. I shouldn't have looked. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself. The preview was brief, a fleeting glimpse into a world I wasn't supposed to see. Does he suspect anything yet? The words burned themselves into my brain, each syllable a searing brand. The blood drained from my face, leaving me cold and hollow. The air seemed to thin, making it hard to breathe. They had a plan. The world tilted on its axis. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed about Sarah, crumbled into dust. 2 years. 2 years of shared laughter, whispered secrets, dreams of a future together. All a lie. The question echoed in my mind, a deafening roar that drowned out everything else. What kind of plan? What was she and David up to? And why? My first instinct was to confront her, to scream, to demand answers, to unleash the fury that was building inside me. But something stopped me. A flicker of self-preservation, perhaps. A realization that I was operating at a disadvantage. I needed information. I needed to understand the game before I could play it. So I swallowed the rage, forced a casual smile onto my face, and said, "Long day. I'm going to bed." Sarah glanced at me, her eyes unreadable. "Okay, I'll be there in a bit." I turned away, my heart hammering against my ribs. As I walked down the hall, I heard her pick up her phone. The tapping started again. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Sleep was impossible. I replayed the last few weeks in my head, searching for clues, for signs I'd missed. Each seemingly innocent interaction now took on a sinister hue. The more I thought, the angrier I became. Not just at Sarah, but at myself. For being so blind, so trusting, so stupid. How could I have been so easily fooled? I tossed and turned, wrestling with my emotions. Betrayal, anger, confusion, and a gnawing sense of vulnerability. I felt like I was standing on shifting sand, the ground constantly threatening to give way beneath my feet. Finally, as the first rays of dawn began to paint the sky, I made a decision. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't be a victim. I would find out what they were planning, and I would stop them. They had a plan. Now, so did I. The next morning, I woke up with a newfound sense of purpose. The numbness had worn off, replaced by a cold, hard determination. I was still hurt, still angry, but I refused to let those emotions paralyze me. The first step was information. I needed to know what Sarah and David were up to. But how? Confronting Sarah directly was out of the question. She would deny everything, or worse, she would lie to me. I needed proof. Concrete evidence that I could use to expose their plan. I started small. I subtly paid more attention to Sarah's phone habits. I noted the times she texted David, the length of their conversations, the frequency of their calls. I tried to memorize her passwords, hoping to gain access to her messages. But she was careful, always angling her phone away from me, quickly deleting notifications, changing her passwords. It was like trying to catch smoke. I considered hiring a private investigator. The idea appealed to me. Someone who could discreetly gather information, someone who knew the ins and outs of surveillance. But the cost was prohibitive. I didn't have that kind of money. So, I decided to do it myself. I started by researching David. I knew very little about him, other than the fact that he was Sarah's ex-boyfriend from college. I scoured the internet for information, searching for social media profiles, news articles, anything that could give me a clue about his life, his personality, his motivations. I found his Facebook page. It was mostly filled with generic posts about his job, his friends, and his hobbies. But I did notice one thing. He seemed to be struggling financially. He'd recently posted about losing his job and was constantly asking for donations to a GoFundMe campaign. Could money be a motive? Was Sarah helping him out financially? It seemed plausible. Sarah was always generous, always willing to help those in need. But if that was the case, why the secrecy? Why the cryptic texts? The more I dug, the more suspicious I became. I decided to expand my surveillance to the real world. I started following Sarah, not in a creepy, stalkerish way, but subtly, discreetly. I knew her routine. I knew where she went, who she saw. One afternoon, I saw her meet David at a coffee shop. I watched them from across the street, my heart pounding in my chest. They sat at a table, talking in hushed tones, their faces close together. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the intensity in their expressions. After about an hour, they left the coffee shop and walked down the street. They stopped in front of a jewelry store. I watched as Sarah pointed to a diamond ring in the window. David nodded, and they went inside. A diamond ring? What were they planning? My mind raced. Were they getting back together? Was Sarah going to leave me for David? The thought was like a punch to the gut. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was going on. I waited until Sarah and David left the jewelry store. Then I followed them back to the coffee shop. I went inside and ordered a coffee. As I waited for my order, I casually glanced at the table where Sarah and David had been sitting. There, on the table, was a small, crumpled piece of paper. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly grabbed the paper and stuffed it into my pocket. I paid for my coffee and hurried out of the shop. Back in my car, I unfolded the paper. It was a handwritten note. Meet me at the old warehouse on Elm Street tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Come alone and bring the money. The money? What money? The note wasn't signed, but I knew who it was from. It had to be from David, and it was addressed to Sarah. The pieces were starting to fall into place. They were planning something big, something that involved money, and it was all happening tomorrow night. I knew what I had to do. I had to be there. I had to find out what they were planning. The next day was the longest day of my life. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind was consumed with thoughts of Sarah and David, the warehouse, the money. I called in sick to work, claiming a sudden bout of food poisoning. My boss didn't seem to believe me, but he didn't press the issue. He probably just wanted me out of his hair. I spent the day preparing. I knew that going to the warehouse was risky. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I couldn't stay away. I had to know the truth. I packed a small bag with essentials, a flashlight, a pocket knife, and a fully charged cell phone. I also considered bringing a weapon. A gun, maybe. But I didn't own a gun, and I didn't want to do anything illegal. In the end, I decided against it. I didn't want to escalate the situation. I just wanted to observe, to gather information. As the hours ticked by, my anxiety grew. I paced around the apartment, unable to sit still. I replayed the last few weeks in my head, searching for any clues I might have missed. I thought about Sarah, about the woman I thought I knew. Had I been completely wrong about her? Was she really capable of betraying me like this? I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe that there was some kind of misunderstanding, that she was being forced into this situation, that she still loved me. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had been lying to me. She had been deceiving me. And she was meeting David at a warehouse tonight to carry out their plan. As 8 p.m. approached, I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was time. I drove to the warehouse on Elm Street. It was located in a rundown industrial area on the outskirts of town. The building was old and dilapidated, with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. It looked like something out of a horror movie. I parked my car a few blocks away and walked the rest of the way. I didn't want to risk being seen. As I approached the warehouse, I could hear voices coming from inside. I crept closer, trying to make out what they were saying. Are you sure this is going to work? It was Sarah's voice. Of course it's going to work, David replied. Just stick to the plan. I don't know, David, Sarah said. I'm starting to have second thoughts. Don't get cold feet now, David said. We're almost there. Just a little bit longer. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to stay out of sight. I peeked through a crack in the boarded-up window. I could see Sarah and David standing in the middle of the warehouse. David was holding a large duffel bag. Where's the money? David asked. Sarah hesitated. It's here, she said, pulling a thick envelope from her purse. Give it to me, David said, reaching for the envelope. Sarah pulled back. I don't know about this, David, she said. This is a lot of money. What if we get caught? We're not going to get caught, David said. Just give me the money. Sarah handed over the envelope. David opened it and counted the bills. Perfect, he said. Just enough. What are you going to do with it? Sarah asked. That's none of your concern. David said. Just know that you're going to be taken care of. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I mean that I'm going to give you your cut, David said. Just like we agreed. How much? Sarah asked. 20%, David said. That's fair, right? Sarah nodded. I guess so, she said. Good, David said. Now let's get out of here. David slung the duffel bag over his shoulder and started to walk towards the door. Sarah followed close behind. I knew I had to act fast. If they left the warehouse, I might lose them. I took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the wall. Sarah, I yelled. Sarah and David froze. They turned around and stared at me in disbelief. What are you doing here? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. I know everything, I said. I know about your plan. I know about the money. I know about everything. David stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. You shouldn't have come here, he said. Why, David? I asked. What are you planning to do with that money? David didn't answer. He just glared at me. Tell me, I demanded. It's none of your business, David said. It is my business, I said. Sarah is my girlfriend. I have a right to know what's going on. She's not your girlfriend anymore, David said. She's with me now. Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't want you to find out like this. Why, Sarah? I asked. Why are you doing this? I need the money, she said. I have debts. Big debts. I don't know what else to do. You could have told me, I said. I would have helped you. I couldn't, she said. I was too ashamed. So you decided to steal from me instead? I asked. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said. I just needed a little bit of money. I was going to pay you back. How were you going to pay me back? I asked. With David's help? He promised to give me 20%, she said. It was enough to cover my debts. And what about us, Sarah? I asked. What about our relationship? Was that all a lie? No, she said. It wasn't a lie. I really did love you. I still do. Then how could you do this to me? I asked. I don't know, she said. I made a mistake. David stepped forward again. Enough talking, he said. Let's just get out of here. He grabbed Sarah's arm and started to pull her towards the door. I couldn't let them leave. I had to stop them. I lunged forward and grabbed David's arm. Let her go, I said. David spun around and punched me in the face. I stumbled backwards, clutching my nose. You want to play rough? David said. Let's play rough. He charged at me, swinging his fists wildly. I ducked and dodged, trying to avoid his blows. I wasn't a fighter. I'd never been in a real fight before, but I wasn't going to back down. I had to protect Sarah. I had to protect myself. I managed to land a few punches of my own. One connected with David's jaw, sending him staggering backwards. He recovered quickly and came at me again. This time, he managed to grab me and throw me to the ground. He straddled me, pinning me down. He raised his fist, ready to strike. Stop, Sarah screamed. David hesitated. He looked at Sarah, then back at me. Please, David, Sarah said. Don't do this. David lowered his fist. He got off of me and stepped back. Get out of here, he said to me. And don't come back. I got to my feet, my body aching. I looked at Sarah, then at David. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I'm calling the police. David's eyes widened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a gun. I wouldn't do that if I were you, he said. He pointed the gun at me. My heart stopped. I was frozen with fear. David, no. Sarah screamed. David ignored her. He kept the gun trained on me. This is your last chance, he said. Get out of here, or I'll shoot. I stared at the gun, my mind racing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to die. But I couldn't leave Sarah. I couldn't let David get away with this. I took a deep breath and stood my ground. I'm not afraid of you, I said. David's finger tightened on the trigger. And then everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. My head was throbbing and my body was covered in bruises. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through my chest. Easy, a voice said. You've been through a lot. I turned my head and saw a woman sitting in a chair next to my bed. She was wearing a police uniform. Where am I? I asked. You're in the hospital, she said. You were shot. Shot. I remembered the gun, David's finger on the trigger. Then, nothing. How bad is it? I asked. You're lucky to be alive, she said. The bullet missed your vital organs. You'll make a full recovery. What happened? I asked. What happened to Sarah and David? We arrested them, she said. They're both in custody. What were they planning to do with the money? I asked. It was a blackmail scheme, she said. David had dirt on a local politician. He was planning to extort him for a large sum of money. And Sarah was in on it. I asked. She was desperate for money, she said. She had gambling debts. David promised to pay them off if she helped him. So she was just using me? I asked. The officer hesitated. I don't know, she said. She claims she still cares about you. But she made a bad decision. A very bad decision. I closed my eyes. The pain in my heart was worse than the pain in my body. Can I see her? I asked. I don't think that's a good idea, she said. She's facing serious charges. You shouldn't be talking to her. Please, I said. I just need to know why. The officer sighed. I'll see what I can do, she said. She left the room. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind filled with questions. Why, Sarah? Why did you do this? A few hours later, the officer returned. I got permission for you to see her, she said. But it will be brief. And I'll be in the room. I nodded. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up. The pain was intense, but I ignored it. I followed the officer down the hall to a small, windowless room. Sarah was sitting at a table, her head in her hands. She looked up when I entered the room. Her eyes were red and swollen. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Why, Sarah? I asked. Why did you do this? I was desperate, she said. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told me, I said. I would have helped you. I know, she said, but I was too ashamed. I didn't want you to know how bad things were. So you decided to steal from me instead? I asked. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said. I just needed a little bit of money. I was going to pay you back. How were you going to pay me back? I asked. With David's help? He promised to give me 20%. She said. It was enough to cover my debts. And what about us, Sarah? I asked. What about our relationship? Was that all a lie? No, she said. It wasn't a lie. I really did love you. I still do. Then how could you do this to me? I asked. I don't. No, she said. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I stared at her, trying to understand. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to forgive her. But the betrayal was too deep. The trust was broken. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. I don't know what to say, I said. I understand, she said. I don't expect you to forgive me. What's going to happen to you? I asked. I don't know, she said. I'm facing serious charges. I'll probably go to prison. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be, she said. I deserve it. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The officer cleared her throat. Time's up, she said. I stood up and walked towards the door. I turned back to look at Sarah one last time. Goodbye, I said. Goodbye, she said. I walked out of the room and back to my hospital bed. I lay down and closed my eyes. It was over. My relationship with Sarah was over. My life was forever changed. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I had to move on. I had to heal. I had to find a way to forgive. It wouldn't be easy, but I had to try. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits, police interviews, and legal proceedings. I was released from the hospital after a few weeks, but the physical and emotional scars remained. The trial was a media circus. The story of the blackmail scheme and the love triangle captivated the public. Sarah and David were portrayed as villains, and I was cast as the victim. I tried to avoid the media attention, but it was impossible. Every time I left my apartment, I was swarmed by reporters and photographers. I received hundreds of letters and emails from strangers offering their support. Some people even sent me money. It was overwhelming. I didn't know how to cope. I started seeing a therapist. She helped me to process my emotions and to develop coping mechanisms. I learned that it was okay to be angry. It was okay to be sad. It was okay to grieve. I also learned that I was not responsible for Sarah's actions. She made her own choices, and she had to face the consequences. The trial lasted for several weeks. In the end, Sarah and David were both found guilty. Sarah was sentenced to 5 years in prison. David was sentenced to 10. I attended the sentencing hearing. I wanted to see them face justice. When the judge announced the sentences, I felt a sense of relief. It was finally over. I left the courtroom and walked out into the sunlight. I took a deep breath and smiled. I was free. It's been a year since the trial. I've moved on with my life. I've started a new job, made new friends, and found a new apartment. I still think about Sarah from time to time. I wonder how she's doing in prison. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. I don't hate her. I don't even blame her. I just feel sad. Sad that things had to end the way they did. I've learned a lot from this experience. I've learned about trust, betrayal, and forgiveness. I've learned about the strength of the human spirit. I've also learned that life is unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen next. But that's okay, because even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. There is always the possibility of a new beginning. I'm ready for my new beginning. I'm ready to move on with my life. I'm ready to find happiness again. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try, because I deserve it. I deserve to be happy, and I know that one day I will be.